for those that are just joining. We are recording, so the recording just started. My name's David Rowe. I am a former coach, and I coached a team for about 6 years. I was very fortunate because the team advanced and became better and better each year. And close to their last year where they participated, they did advance to world, and they won the there's quotation marks or an asterisk next to it. They did win the world competition during COVID. So unfortunately, a lot of other teams were not able to participate. The prior 2 years, they had also advanced to world. So I've had a little bit of experience with teams that have been very, very fortunate to advance to world. I also judge quite a bit and have been a tournament coordinator, a referee and judge at qualifiers and at state for many, many years. So I've had a chance to see a lot of different teams over the years and get a little bit of an idea of what makes for an engaging, interesting presentation that the judges are looking for, how to assist your team to have fun. Primarily my team, the goal was always to have fun. So whatever else happened, I've seen a note that Joe is joining here in a moment. This is great. So whatever else happened during the competition, as a coach, I always saw my role to make sure that the team was enjoying learning and enjoying going through the process so that they never wanted to quit because they didn't like the process. Perhaps they were down a little bit because they didn't win or didn't advance to where they want to go. But the goal with my team was always to keep them interested in the process and therefore keep them interested in learning. So that's what it was about for me. As well as I did have a daughter in the program, so I wanted to make sure that she had an interest in STEM. She was to the point where she was very inquisitive, wanted to learn more. She was more into the project than she was the robot, which worked out well for many of the other team members that were deep into the robot. So we'll talk a little bit about how teams divided themselves and as far as the mechanics of kind of getting the team to work together. Today's program is going to focus primarily in 3 areas. It's the core values. Where did they go? How are we going to integrate the core values into the present judging? For those just joining us, we'll talk about a little bit about what the core values used to be and how they used to be presented. And then project development, using the professionals and the experts in the field, using their feedback so that you can satisfy the requirements of the rubrics to create an engaging and competitive program. So that's one that we're going to cover. Then third, we're going to take a look at robot development, trying to figure out how can we position the robot on the board, what can we use for designing and programming resources, and moving your team from accomplishing one mission to accomplishing many missions. And that's always seems to be a hurdle that teams have to overcome. They'll send the robot out to accomplish one mission. The robot will return to base or home, and then they'll send it out again for another mission. And looking at how can we combine those missions? What are the strategies that we can use in order to combine those together so that they can send the robot out, as well as a few things on navigation, line following. We're not going to get deep into programming for a couple of reasons. One is I never learned programming while I was coaching. So it's one that I forced the kids to learn the programming, gave them some direction. We had another coach on our team that was able to provide programming. So it's an area that I've not done a lot. Now, Joe, he's joining us now. He'll be able to talk about programming a little bit, but it's really designed to look at how do we move our teams from where they're at right now in the season to getting ready for that presentation, both of the robot and of the project, because we have, if I count correctly, I took a look at it last week, I think our first qualifier comes up here just in 4 to 5 weeks. And so we're right at the edge of having some of our qualifiers coming in. Joe is joining us right now, and I'll give him a chance to get all situated. We can see you, so your video is working. It looks like your mic is on. How are you tonight, Joe?
Good, David. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you great. Sorry to kind of grab you in at the last second. I think I may have not sent sufficient reminders, so I'm going to put it on me
No,
to
no,
not.
it was. I apologize. I actually was struggling to find the link is what my problem was.
Okay.
So I had very much planned. I've been. Anyways, thanks. Cool.
All right,
So
I'm still going to put it on me for not sending enough links and not sending you enough reminders with all the information, but we're here now. So I just ran through the three topics that we're going to be talking about, looking at the core values, project development, and robot development. And I gave a very, very brief introduction of you as far as your background, but I'm not even certain how many years you've coached. So why don't you go ahead and give a little bit of your background as a coach and your involvement in FLL so people understand the context that you're providing information tonight.
yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I started, I guess, 10 years ago, maybe coaching teams. I've judged many tournaments, many state tournaments. Um, We've had very good success with many of the teams that we've coached, including last year we were a Champions Award finalist at Worlds, which was probably the best team we ever coached. And yeah, no, just been doing it a long time. Personal life, I'm a CTO of a software company, and I'm an advisor to the University of Illinois in Champaign, which is where I am at the moment. I just left an advisory board meeting for that, so for the computer science department. So yeah, that's a little bit of me. Yeah, I've just done FLO for a long time. So really, if there's anything from a competition perspective, from a building a robot perspective, by the project perspective, I could probably answer the question. And the biggest piece of advice I give in general is just really understand if your goal is to do well at the competition, understand the process by which the competition is judged. I don't think many people understand the way the competition is judged, and I think they are shocked when they actually learn the way the competition is actually judged. So I think that's the goal of today, is to discuss how the competition is judged, and the best way to do this is to review the rubric, right? Is to really go through the rubric, and you have to realize, honestly, I think the first 5 years of doing this, I had no idea how anything was judged. Probably didn't read the rubric nearly as much as I should have, frankly. Um, I didn't, and we didn't do that well, frankly, is what it came down to. And it wasn't until I actually volunteered to be a judge and then actually had to go judge other teams with the rubric that I realized how bad we were doing at fulfilling the rubric. So I guess the biggest thing I can do if you want to run a competitive team, go judge a tournament, and then you will actually be a whole different level of how much better you will be. So, anyways, that's my involvement in FLL. So,
All right, and I think the rubrics are a great place to start, and I've screen shared. So if I've got it up on everybody's screen, it's currently stating judging session feedback. And for those that are not familiar with the rubrics, these are available on the First Inspires website under the materials for this season. And they're comprised of these pages, which are going to be in front of the judges during the judging session. So the session feedback provides some criticism and more in the nature of constructive critique so that the team can improve themselves. There's an area where the judge can mark the team as a breakthrough award, a rising all-star, or a motivate award. But importantly, when we get into the rubrics themselves, what we're talking about are the components that are the broken down individual areas where the team is assessed and how they're assessed during the presentation. We have the innovation project rubric, and it has identify, design, create, iterate, communicate. And we have the robot design. And within that, we have identify, design, create, iterate, communicate. In the past, the first topic we're looking at is where are the core values? Where did they go? Because in the past, there was a third judging form, and those rubrics were set up the same as the innovation project with beginning, developing, accomplished, and an area for the judge to fill in to identify that the team had team spirit. They were cohesive. All members participated, that each area was covered by all of the members, and a variety of other things that focused on the core values and whether or not they showed gracious professionalism, had fun, and really embodied the mission of the entire program. That page is gone now. And so we have the rubrics, which are now Innovation Project, with the areas that we looked at, 1 through 4, as far as the ranking goes, on what they can do, and the robot design. Within those rubrics, Joe, have you had a chance to take a look at these rubrics for this year?
I have.
Okay, why don't you take it away and answer the question, where's the core values? Where did they go? And if you prefer to share your screen, if you want to pull up the rubrics, that's fine. Or
No, I'm
I'll
not in a
scroll
place to share
along
my.
as you go.
That would be good. So essentially, what's happened in the core values system, and frankly, I'll give you my personal opinion that I actually like the way they're doing this. I'm sure other people have different opinions, but they're actually double counting some of the fields to be, frankly, more important. So if you take the identify, you have 2 columns here. One is understand definition of the problem. And you're basically saying, did we have a clear definition of the problem? And that's worth 1 level. And then is it double, David? Is that right? Is the ones that are starred essentially double, or they count towards the core value score as well?
The ones that are starred, and it's no secret, these rubrics are available on the website. So there's no secrets here on how the team is going to be evaluated. The mark at the bottom, the criteria on this page with the style of the checkbox with the gear around it, count dually or doubly towards Innovation Project and Core Value Award rankings.
So if you go to the top one, let's start at the top. It really comes down to identify. This really comes down to, did you clearly state the problem you're trying to solve? And then the second part of this is, did you have a research from a variety of sources? When there's something that looks like the sunflower, I guess it looks like a gear. I don't know what it's trying to look like. It counts also towards your core value points. David, do you mind if I just go through these one by one to tell people how to get the maximum points? Is that cool?
Yes, let's go ahead, and this is what we're evaluating. So let's help them get some points.
The one thing I'll start by saying, all FLL judges are volunteers. I help run tournaments. I've been on the coaching side of this. I've been on the judging side of this. I'll just say the FLL team in Illinois does their hardest to put the best judges out possible. We really do our best to put the best judges out possible. And despite that, sometimes our judges are not as good as they should be. And I say that from being on all aspects of it. And I used to complain about how bad judging was until I started running tournaments, and I realized how hard it is to get great judges. And now we're doing the best we can. So that's probably the reality. The best way to handle judges that might have a variant level of quality is to make sure you state your problem 2 to 3 times. Don't just state it once. Don't state it in a mumbly way. State it in a very clean way. Make sure you articulate it. Make sure it's also written down. Say it with emphasis, but make sure you clearly state the problem. When I'm judging, you'll see like you're just curious about the problem. And in the Q&A session, the judge will ask, what is the problem? So you just really make sure you clearly articulate the problem you're solving. It's amazing how many times people don't do this, but they should just do this. And then for research, you really want to have a variety of research to judges, in-person interviews, probably get a lot more points than just surfing the web. You should document all of your sources. So when you use a fact or a piece of information, make sure you give the attribution back to the source. It's great if it's a web page. It's great if it's a magazine article. It's great if it's a source. You really do get bonus points if you researched with an in-person professional. If you went to meet someone, If you have 2 or 3 different professionals that you go meet, that's really what's going to get you a 4 here, is meeting people in person. Any questions on identify or research? Does that make sense? David D, did I miss anything? Is that fair?
No, I think that's fine, and we can touch on these a little bit
Yeah.
quicker because I do
Okay.
want to move through some other
Okay.
areas. But
Cool.
yep,
I'll just go to the top a little bit. Is design the second one?
yes,
Okay, cool. Yeah, so it really comes down to what is the solution with the design? Did you have an effective plan? Was there clear evidence of an effective plan that solved the problem? State that this is our solution to the problem. Um, um, and then make sure that everyone was involved, right? Um, Make sure that if everyone's involved, and you really do want to get everyone involved for the course of the project, it's really good is if every one of your team members talks about the part of the solution that they worked on and they express how they solved their problem. So, and it's okay if some people did a lot more than other people on the project. Judges understand that, and we understand that that's what FIRST is about. And it really doesn't matter if some kids are amazing and some kids are just struggling, right? That's what FIRST is about. But we just want to see that that kid that is struggling at least did something and they made some progress. So what's more important than anything is that you show the movement of, hey, I didn't know anything about this problem, and I did this little bit of research, and this is what I learned. Even though I knew nothing about electricity and I knew nothing about mechanical engineering, if they learned something and they participated and contributed, that's what's more important. So I think a lot of times what happens is the stronger kids just dominate the conversation and get points taken off by it doesn't appear that everyone worked on it. So you really
yeah.
got to have everyone
Yeah,
contribute.
as a judge, I've seen that many, many times where I can pick out that team members obviously did something. They're waiting to talk. They want to say what they did, but other students dominate. Getting those students and helping them to recognize that they need to state their position, but then step back and allow someone else shows me the type of teamwork that's going to get them higher points. So they actually, by keeping their mouth shut, actually can achieve higher points, allowing the other students that may not have been as strong to step forward to allow them to express what they did. And that's how on this particular one under design with the gear on it, the clear evidence that the process involved all team members. That's where the core values went. And let's, if we can, let's hit on just the rest of the gears and we'll move on to one of the next questions.
Cool. Yeah. Of innovation in the solution. Just what is innovative?
What is innovative?
There's some echo. So
There's some echo.
I think York, it may be your. There you go. Okay, good. Yeah, it's what's innovative, what's unique, what's novel, um, uh, and then how does it impact the world, right? Really communicate. How did what you built impact the world?
There's the
Who,
core
who,
values. Yep,
yes.
that's the core value, is explaining the potential impact on others. And that's what's showing the core values together with the next one, which embodies the fun component.
Yeah, and then you got to be enthusiastic and fun. um, Develop a skit, develop a song. You don't have to do the whole presentation. Just have your team do something that's high energy as part of the skit. Just be a little silly, I think, is my biggest recommendation. Even if for 5 seconds of being silly, it's a lot better. Let the kids have fun is really what it comes down to.
Now,
I've seen.
when you say skit, I want to touch on this for just a moment because we have some new people here that many people, myself included, the very first year, I'm envisioning the same old PowerPoint style presentation where the students sit there and do the report the same as they would if they were in fifth grade. But that's not what this is about. When you say skit and you say presentation, hit on just a few highlights of presentations you've seen to give a flavor of what these students put together.
Yeah, I mean, so we did last year. The girls pretended they were doing a talk radio show. So they had the two girls were hosting a talk radio show, and the other person was having commercials during the talk radio show, and that's their whole presentation was by that. We've done other years where they sang a bunch of songs about the skits while they did the whole thing. We just did just creative ways to get the content across. The content is insanely densely packed, so the skit is insanely densely packed with information. You follow the rubric and you get all the points across in the rubric, including all your research, who you shared with, but it's really just not just to stand up and do the science fair presentation. It's some creative way to present it. And there's
And
lots of
I
examples
encourage,
online.
yes,
Yeah.
I encourage coaches to take a look at YouTube, to look at FLL project presentations. And then you'll see suddenly, oh, they put together whole stories. They take existing stories and do a mashup. I've had people do Hollywood Squares, which it's probably been off the air for 20 years. The talk show setting is one that has come up. Shark Tank is a theme that repeats again and again.
Yeah.
So the students can take anything from pop culture. They can take any type of song and turn it into a song, combination of songs, anything that is engaging and doesn't detract from the presentation, but provides a vehicle to carry the story forward. So that's what the coaches are used to seeing in the teams that really grasp these rubrics that, oh, let's make this as fun as possible. So under the robot design, if we can just briefly touch on the gears here, just the final third section of each gear to talk about how these are actually core value rubrics.
Yeah, I mean, so really it comes down to um, how did you learn how to build your robot? What was your mission, and then how did you use resources to help you learn that? I've watched a YouTube video on how to build a proportional line follower, things like that. Really discuss what you've done, and then show how you use those resources to help you advance. So whether you talk to someone or what resources you've used. The next thing is just make sure everyone has been involved. All my teams, we had novices to very experienced people. What I always used to do is make sure the very inexperienced people talk about what they've learned, and they went from nothing to I helped build part of this one mission. And then the really strong people talk about what they did, right? But just make sure everyone contributes really more than anything. Um, Iteration is a big part of this. Show how you use the engineering design process to iterate through iterations. So we have attachments onto our robots. And as you iterate through attachments, the girls would, sometimes iterate 5, 6 different attachments. We would actually
And it's,
never,
yeah,
go ahead.
let me jump in. It's important that all of the students at this point learn the definition of iterate and the variations, the conjugations. What iterations did you have? How did you iterate? So that they can come back and explain to the judges that, oh, we tested this, we learned this, we made this change to improve the robot. It's what did you learn, change, and then test, and then do it again. So it's the repeat of the design process where you take your idea, you bring it to fruition, you test it, figure out the defects, go back to the beginning and design again. That's the iteration process that the judges, if your team is able to, if they can put the word iteration somewhere in their presentation, that is going to take that judge straight to the iterate rubric and start checking boxes. He or she is going to start looking at, oh, they understand iterate, so we're on iterate. And here's evidence of repeated testing of the robot and code. These things are using the conjoining word and. So the team has to talk about, we tested the robot, made these changes and improved. We did it 15 times. We kept a log. We watched all the success rates and came out with X percentage of success. And the code changed it used it, changed it, used it, changed it, used it. And then clear evidence of improvements based on testing. Any type of log, any type of record, anything that they can show that they repeated the process again and again and again, and not just, oh, we did it 3 times and it was good. Well, that's going to be checkbox number 1. And then we tested everything 10 times. Okay, they're in section 2. And then, oh, we tested and kept a log and made improvements from that, and even had to go back to an earlier version, which was more successful. Great. Now you're in 3 and possibly 4. So sorry
And
to
some of
jump
the
in there,
things,
but I want
you're
the new
great.
coaches to understand. Yeah.
And some of the things, if you have enough parts, don't take apart your failures. Bring your failures to the judging mission and show all your failures. I always like to see people's failures, what they learned, and then how they iterated into their next mission. I mean, last year, I think, trying to do soundboard, I think we had 5 iterations we showed the judges trying to do the soundboard. And it's just like, okay, these were the 5 iterations. And the girls actually talked about all their iterations and what failed and what they advanced on. And, and if you start doing that, that's the way you get the highest scores.
And
And then,
then,
good.
sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
Yeah, the last one then, again, for those that are just learning the rubrics for the first time, you're going to see some themes that repeat. And the last one being the team clearly shows pride or enthusiasm for their work. And so that is something they're going to have to express with how excited they are, how much they want the judges to truly understand what they did all season long, and just bringing that forward as much as possible. The robot presentation is an area where a lot of teams don't focus and practice on actually what they're going to do for their time. They think they have a general idea, oh, we'll go in and talk about the robot, etc. But I would suggest for the coaches to consider putting together an actual presentation, moving through all of these process, and having the team take ownership and read these rubrics. Those team members absolutely can read the rubrics, parse them out, and build the presentation around the rubrics. So where in your presentation are you showing clear evidence of mission strategy? Tell me about your mission strategy. Okay, where's your clear use of building and coding resources? Show me that. All of these individual rubrics, the team can take those. At one time, we even took these, I blew them up a lot larger, took scissors, cut them out, and everybody claimed one, and that, okay, this is mine. I'm going to be sure that I hit on this. And then they went through and created the presentation by using the accomplished column 3 and just cutting those all out, and each one owning it and taking it. Okay, I'm going to present this. So it's a lot of different ways you can approach it. But I think the main thing that Joe and I probably have hammered in now is that these are the rubrics in front of the judges, and this is how the team is going to be evaluated. Within these rubrics, the core values are now contained inside of the gear, and that's an area where the team needs to expressly, clearly state that whatever the rubric is that they're accomplishing, that they have done that particular area. The goal is to have the judges mark 3s on everything. Joe, can you tell us how you get to a 4?
Yeah, you just go over the top. I mean, just any way you can go over the top. High enthusiasm, lots of detailed explanation. Just very, very, very. The kids really have to have done the work, and they have to really know the work, and really be able to explain stuff incredibly well.
And I would say documentation.
Yes, yes.
They bring documentation. They show us all of your testing. They show us all of the failures, the robot pieces that failed, and how they went back and redesigned. It really requires that the team do something extra. In order for a judge to give a 4, the judge must expressly state why that team gets a 4. So it's one that the team has to actually spoon feed it to the judge why they get a 4. That we searched out 6 professionals and contacted these 6 people. And from their information, we then went back and rebuilt it, presented it again to those 6 professionals. We presented to Let's see, surveys. Teams have done surveys throughout the entire school, gathered the information, used that to improve their project, and the results from the survey were brought. That type of documentation is something that's tangible that the judge can write down.
Yeah, it's and for me, David, I think a lot of it comes down to making sure every team has a variety of kids. The strong kids, they're easy, right? They're really, they'll talk and they'll do well, especially if they're extroverts, they'll do incredibly well. What I always did was the extreme introverts, just give the extreme introverts a few talking points that they can feel comfortable with. Make sure you even script a few things for them to say. You'll always get a few common questions. Let those extreme introverts feel comfortable and show that they were involved. And what I always like to see from all my teams is when the kids that frankly didn't work as much or maybe learned less, when they're explaining things, I know we're doing well then because those are the kids that are talking more. And then even if we make them feel incredibly comfortable. Who cares what you say? It doesn't matter. Talk about anything. If you're wrong, you're wrong. Who cares? The strong kids then just say, and another way to think about this might be this, and then the strong kids just add on. They never say they're wrong, but so get the younger kids, the less experienced kids, the kids that might not feel as confident. Make sure they're leading questions. That to me that's the biggest one as well. Because if you're not going to do incredibly well unless the whole team participates.
Yeah, and sometimes the teams figure out that themselves. When you start to ask the team to take a look at all the team members and who should you lead with? Who do you want to be certain that their voice is heard and who runs the potential risk of not having their voice heard? Once the team realizes that, oh, well, we have some people that may get drowned out, let's put them front and center and have them start us off. And then the other team members come in, help the team decide how to present the material in a manner that is going to bring everybody forward and satisfy all of the rubrics. I'd like to turn now to professionals. We've talked about this a little bit. All areas of the project depend heavily on iteration through exposure to professionals or people that use the material or people that are professionals in the industry. How have you guided your team to locate professionals? And have you allowed your team to stop at just one? How do you let the team know that these rubrics are really looking for 3, 4, 5 professionals in order to achieve the maximum award? So how do you get them to find all those professionals?
I mean, so what I always did is I always made them brainstorm on professionals. And then a couple of years ago, there was the electricity um, thing where we built something for an HVAC system. And something like an HVAC system is great because they're just like, go find an HVAC system in the neighborhood, and they're able to do that. When it came down to designing a sensor, things like that, that's where I gave them people I knew in the industry, things like that. That I would say you need to call these people, you need to send the email, you need to arrange this. So I think it's in bounds to help them find experts, but they should be leading the communication. They should be leading the interview process, especially when it's more, experts that are harder to get a hold of. Frankly,
Yeah,
but they should be leading the interview process. They
yeah,
should. I make them draft the emails. I make them be prepared with a list of questions, things like that. So.
yeah. One of the areas that was difficult for the team is trying to figure out where do we start. And so I approached it many, many times with, all right, what kind of jobs are there in this area? Why don't you go out, instead of trying to
Yeah.
find people, what kind of jobs are there? We would then turn that to where can you get the education necessary for that? And that opens the door to the idea of professors, grad students, a whole variety of people that even though they're not in the area, the students can contact them through so many different channels now. they can set up a Zoom, which is an amazing way to do it. If they can get a screen capture and incorporate that into their presentation to show the person, that to me as a judge is the equivalent of being in the room with the person, because you contacted them, it's direct, you're interacting with them. The telephone, students are resistant to telephones, but we did find an expert one time. It was into orbit. The team found an astronaut and actually located his phone on the internet. And one of the students called to arrange a conversation during our meeting. And so we threw a cell phone on the table. The students called him up and had a long conversation with Story Musgrave, and talked about all the variations on flight and aviation and space and things like that. So my point is that distance should not be a barrier to the students contacting these professionals. They can contact someone in another country as easily as they can contact someone in the next town. And this being a water season, we have both the Great Lakes and a tremendous amount of resources for the Great Lakes and anything that deals with water. But then anything along the coast, all of these professionals have always been very, very willing to talk to the students. So searching them out on the internet, hitting them up with an email, organizing a time to talk on the phone or Zoom if possible is great. So they should be able to reach out to them. As far as your team, did they ever want to just stop after talking to one or two professionals and, okay, we got enough?
Yeah, I think, I was thinking the biggest piece of advice I have for the project is make sure your team picks a topic or a problem that someone on the team is at least very passionate about. So I got to tell you, the worst seasons I had, and frankly, was the space season. It was by far the worst season I had because no one had a passion for anything in space on our team, and because no one had a passion, it was difficult. Whereas like last year, our project was about crocheting, and we had a girl that was extremely into crocheting. And so she knew way more than any of the project people, the coaches did. So the kids really did run that whole thing by themselves
Mhm.
because the kids had a passion for what they're doing. So the biggest thing, if the kids actually produce the problem and the solution by themselves, and someone on the team is incredibly passionate, it's amazing how quickly the experts drop out. I mean, they just rattle off their heads. It's just not versus like the space season. We just struggled. I mean, we just
Well,
struggled.
and I
So
have to throw in, yeah, I have to throw into the space season. Our team was struggling also until they found their passion, which
yeah,
was snack time and food. And then suddenly we said, okay, what about food in space? Why don't you guys explore that? And ultimately, they looked at doing raising shrimp in space. So they integrated what they did love into an
yep,
area, which brings up a really great point. As a judge, I feel very conflicted many times when a team comes in, does a good presentation, clearly researched something, but it's not on topic. And this happens every single year that and I can't recall sitting here right now what the last one was, but for example, if it was space and into orbit, then they would give a presentation about uh, how to make a magnet stick to a board and keep paper in place, but not tie it to anything and not tie it to space. So it's very, very important that the team understands what the specific problem is and the challenge for the season. Have you had a chance to take a look at the challenge material for the season?
I have not. I have not looked at it closely for the challenge material. Sorry.
Okay, no,
I'll
that's
let you.
fine.
I'll let you explain it.
Yeah, it's this year. It's the probably the shortest I've ever seen it, and I'm trying to pull it up here right now so I can read it directly because it is so wide open. And I have a PDF loading here from the First Inspires website. So give me just a minute here as it keeps coming
So
up.
while David's loading, I
Yeah, go
think
ahead.
I just having like last year, our project really was about crocheting. My the coaches know nothing about crocheting. It wasn't anything we even ideated on, and so, but it's just it became it became so easy. I just can't even tell you how easy the project became when they actually were passionate about something. So that's the biggest thing. And then it becomes so obvious, and make sure all the kids work on it again is one of the bigger things. And then finally, the biggest thing I see as a judge is when it's obvious the kids did not do the work. Then just if you have two fourth graders that aren't very mature, and you have this very sophisticated thing that they can't even pronounce the words for, it's probably pretty obvious that the kids did not do the work. It's always obvious to me. It happens once in a great while. It doesn't happen very often, but it happens once a year where it's just like, you don't do the work for them, is really what it comes down to. Have the kids find something they're passionate about and do the work for them, and don't do the work for them. Have them do it. It's all the
Yeah.
judges know it, and so I just that's my one thing I'd stay away from.
Yeah, I have to echo that. I'm not going to repeat a lot more of what you just said, but yes, as a judge, it's very evident that this team, the students look back to their teachers, look back to the people behind them,
Yeah.
looking for the answers, and it becomes very, very painful sometimes as a judge to watch. And I would much rather hear from a student who did something they loved. So this season, and I encourage you to look at the materials again, but it states, your challenge is to dive into a problem faced by people who explore the oceans. All right, so that gives some context to it. The problem itself is stated as identify and research a problem related to exploring the oceans. Okay, that is so extraordinarily broad. I'm not even certain where I would start on something like that. So it's a problem faced by people who explore the oceans. So number one, I'm going to want a team's project relate to the ocean. Okay, it's got to touch upon the ocean. So I use the Great Lakes as an example, but that's for professionals who use water, and you don't want to have someone saying, "Oh, we can clear the water filtration by introducing some species that eats all the algae and clears up the water in freshwater lakes." Okay, that's not going to satisfy the topic. This is one that it must be the ocean, and it's a problem faced by people who explore. So people explore ocean. So whatever the problem is, those three words need to fit into your problem somehow. And if you fit all three of those words in there somehow, then it's going to satisfy it to me. It doesn't have to be directly related to it, but there are, and I don't even want to suggest topics because many people here may have topics already, and I don't want to talk about specific topics. But as long as it does relate to people, exploring, and ocean, then it's going to satisfy the requirement. And many times, new people have a difficult time figuring out, okay, what is a problem and what's a good problem? How did your team move through that process?
I'm gonna give Dee credit for something we used last year that she told me to do, and it was amazing. We created a matrix for everyone came up with ideas, and then we came up with a matrix for how much impact it had, how much it was on target, how much passion people had for it. We made other scores for the matrix for how it would judge well, and then we listed all our ideas and really just I made the matrix. Last year we had a tough time because we misread the project last year. So despite going to Worlds, we misread the project for the first 4 weeks, 5 weeks of trying to do it until, frankly, I talked to Dee, and Dee's like, "Did you read it?" And I'm like, "Not really." So because I'm in year 10, why do I have to read it? So I'll say number one, read it. Even in year 10, they change stuff and you don't realize it. But yeah, just have the kids ideate. We created a matrix, a scoring matrix. When I put it on a big piece of paper that I taped to the wall. The kids then filled out the matrix. And then when a judge asked them, how did you pick your topic? They went through all their ideas and they talked about their matrix and they showed how they made their selection process. And it doesn't really matter what your matrix is that much, but have a process by which, all the ideas are being considered and they have a way to score it.
And we had a couple of things pop up in the chat that it isn't about the animals, it's about the explorers exploring the ocean. You are correct. And you can look in the materials in the Project Sparks. They have a couple of different storylines that help the students to get an idea where they may be and where they may want to go. There's a marine biologist tracking large schools of fish. So that's an area to integrate animals. If your team has a strong interest in animals, then great. What type of research is being done? How can that be improved? Because exploring those animals is exploring the ocean. And there's a submarine pilot, and they talk about navigating through different conditions. That's extraordinarily technical and very, very difficult for teams to try to improve and learn about in the short amount of time. There's an oceanographer. How can we collect or analyze artifacts in the abyss? So there's an area of, all right, we're exploring the oceans, but maybe you're exploring the animals, you're exploring the natural formations and the artificial. Either it can be sunken ships, it can be sunken treasure. Again, I do want to try to stay off specifics, but if it's in the ocean and it's being explored, as a judge, that's enough for me. So how are you going to help someone explore the ocean? And if they're exploring fish, they're exploring any type of natural phenomena, they're exploring geology. None of it is out of bounds as long as it's people exploring something in the ocean.
Yeah, and I would say the problem is about how the people are exploring the ocean. It's the problem that the people are having, it seems like. Should be the solution should be relating to that.
Yes, let me go to the specific words again. Identify and research a problem related to exploring the oceans. So
Okay.
it's not limited to a problem people face. It's a problem related to exploring the oceans. And these are problems faced by people who explore the oceans, but the specific challenge says identify and research a problem related to exploring the oceans. So I think anything within that realm is within bounds, and the team just has to make a logical connection. As a judge, I just want the smallest of logical connections, and that's good enough for me.
Hey, David and Joe, thank you for having
Any
me.
other questions people have?
This is
Let's
Ruki.
really
I'm
open
a
up to
newbie.
questions here because we've
Just want to
monopolized
have
the time, but hopefully we've given some direction. Go ahead and just
robot
unmute and
executing
ask your
down the
question
board.
if you want, or
Is
put it
it
in the chat.
mandatory to complete maximum mission, like run 1, run 2, run 3? All the run to be completed in the synchronous way? Like if I run 1 is failed, can I pick up the robot in between and jump to the run 2 and continue the leftover missions? Is it allowed?
Joe, you operated under the rules last year, and they're virtually the same this year. So go ahead and give them the answer.
Yeah, fair enough. Yes, absolutely. So anytime you interrupt a mission, you take a penalty token. The penalty tokens, depending if it's the first one, second one, third one, and fourth one, have different values. Last year, there was no penalty for one interruption. I don't know if that's still a true statement or not. But then as you get to subsequent interruptions, there's changing penalty values as you interrupt the robot. But really, the definition of interruption is the robot is launched from home with a single press or a single action. It partially at least leaves home, and then you touch it after it's left home before it completely returns to home. That is considered an interruption. I'm fearful with D on the call because I'm fearful that I'm stating this wrong. So I feel like D will correct me if I'm wrong. So
Everything was right. You're good.
thanks, D. And then but it's allowed. And 1 year because you can interrupt the
Thank you, Joe. Thanks
robots
for the
without a
answer.
penalty. At least the 1 year we did it. We actually planned an interruption because driving back took too long. We actually had the girl go pick it up and bring it back to home because it was faster than driving back home. So you can absolutely interrupt if that answers your question.
Yeah,
I
and
also
I
wanted to,
encourage it. They bring the robot back, run the same run again. If it's not going to be productive, move right on to the next one and run the next one.
right. And I
Absolutely.
want to clarify too that missions don't have to be run in the order that they're presented in the robot game rulebook. They can be run in any order that the team chooses, and they don't all have to be done. Some teams out there do one mission, some teams out there do 5 missions, some teams out there do all the missions, but it's up to the team to determine their strategy and how they want to plan their kind of attack of the different missions. And they don't have to do the mission completely in one go. So for example, the shark on this year's field, there's 2 parts of that mission. You can get the main part for getting the shark out of the cave. The team could also deliver the shark for bonus points. Those don't have to be done in the same launch. And they don't, the shark habitat area doesn't have to be completed. They can be done at different times. It doesn't matter. It's up to the team to decide that.
And
And it's
another way
also
to state that same thing is the scoring is based upon the completion at the end of the 2.5 minutes. So it's the state the board exists at that point in time. How many times your robot takes to get it there doesn't matter. And whether or not you do 3 different things to get it there doesn't matter. Sorry to interrupt, Joe.
No, I can say you can do multiple missions with one launch as well. So it's exactly what David said. It's the state at the end. It doesn't as long as you're not using your hand or doing anything illegal, it really doesn't matter the sequence or if you do 2 or just do 1. I've seen like the team that won Worlds last year had a very simple robots that they did 1 or 2 missions with every launch and they launched 14 times in 2.5 minutes. And it was incredibly effective. They put up 3 perfect scores with a very, very simple robot. It was amazing. And we had a really complicated robot that couldn't do nearly as well. So all sorts of strategies work.
Other questions?
Yeah, I just had a quick question on
Christine.
the topic. I guess when I interpreted the topic, it was more people working within the oceans and a problem that they face doing their job versus it being more exploring for recreational purposes. Am I misreading that, or because my kids' topics don't seem to be more recreational based? They're a little more
I think it's
professionally
broad.
based.
Yeah, it is. And all I have to go by are the words. And the description starts off with dive into a problem faced by people who explore the oceans. So anything within that realm absolutely satisfies the question and is acceptable. The specific statement of the problem is identify and research a problem related to exploring the oceans. Well, I think that there's an understanding that it's going to involve people because
Right.
we're not looking at any other type of exploration. So it encompasses people exploring the oceans, but that exploration could be for anything. Could be gain knowledge, could be archaeology, could be animals. It could cover any area at all that the team can
Because
make a
when you look at the
connection of
examples
person
in the
exploring
kids'
ocean.
workbook, and it gives you those project sparks, and it says, like, I'm the submarine pilot, and I want a better way for me and my team to navigate through difficult conditions. Like, to me, it just seems a really more kind of career based. Like, for example, one of my teams today is talking about oil spills and how they can change the way that a boat uses a skimmer and adding different things to it. But now I'm worrying that that's not truthfully exploring the ocean, or can that be a gateway to something else in the ocean. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying, because that's a great example of something I would be faced with as a judge to make a determination. Wait a minute, did they identify a problem that fits the challenge for this year? Because it's clear that it's exploring the oceans. So how, and what their kids are exploring is certainly a very valid and important thing. But is that exploring
Let's
the
see.
ocean?
But
I
in the
think that
other
the students
example with
may
the
want to take it
oceanographer,
further
it says, can you
somehow.
help me improve the way to collect and analyze artifacts found? Is that an example of exploring? Like, I feel like you and I are interpreting the topic very differently.
I
So
and
can I
and
step in
people
here?
do, and
So
sometimes it takes a long discussion. D?
yeah, so it's not necessarily the act of exploration, right? Because when we think about an act of exploration, it's very physical, right? But exploring is also learning about and researching about things. So the marine biologist example in the Project Spark, they're trying to learn about the ocean. So they're trying to explore this topic, and they need a better way to collect samples, right? So I think the key thing is, David said it, can the kids take it a step further? So how does it connect back to someone exploring, how they're learning about the ocean? It doesn't necessarily have to be like a literal profession.
See,
It can be
I
recreation,
feel
because
like the
recreationally
examples
people
need
explore
it
the
to
ocean
be
as
that
well.
you need to pick
I
a
think
profession and the problem that they face.
I'd say no. I'm a certified diver. I explore the ocean all the time. And if somebody were to improve the recreational aspect of how people learn and experience and explore the ocean, even in a recreational sense, that's a team that's tied it together. So if a team were going to use an example of trapping, as your team, trapping something, where is the knowledge gain that's taking place? I think it does need to go just a
Right. Like,
little
we're
bit
just at the
further
point
to
now of
really
stating
hit
what the
the
problem,
topic.
like, what is our problem
Ways,
statement? So we started with, like, this is my career and this is the problem I'm facing. This is what my solution is, or this is what I need help with. So we're just kind of starting that. But this one group that I have now, one group is kind of focusing more on like ocean photography. So that I think is a little bit easier to see the exploring. But I'm now very worried about this oil group, even though that's something that they're all worried about and conscious of, but maybe they need to be geared somewhere different, because I'm interpreting that topic very differently than you guys are.
yeah, I think that if they were to take a look at further refining what the problems are that they're thinking about solving, and I just as a giveaway is where I would lead the team, is there a problem with identifying the location of contaminants or oil or other problems in the ocean such that we can develop a way to explore in the ocean where this material is in order to remove it? So that to me is a team that would tie it there, that, oh well, there are contaminants, there's something released, and we have a better way to find it and explore the ocean, not necessarily for what should be there, but for what should not be there. That would be enough for me as a judge to, yeah, okay, you're exploring the ocean.
Yeah,
If
and David, I think to me it's tying it to the person. So I would make sure you tie it to the captain. So if the captain is trying to do their job to explore the ocean,
Oh, no, no. Yeah,
tie the
we've done
problem to
like
the
a rough
captain. Don't
hand.
tie
The
it to the
kids
boat.
found is the name of the
Because
person who is
yeah,
on the oil rig that's,
yeah,
running the cleanup or whatever it may be. And what they want to do is change something to the skimmer, adding
yeah,
different things that could sense this and this. But okay.
yep. Just make sure they talk about. I mean, the big thing for me,
Yeah.
it has to be about a problem a person is having who's exploring the ocean. So it has to be about a problem a person's having. So just make sure that the subject is about how the
Agreed.
captain has
Yep.
this problem, It's not about how the boat has the problem. It's a slight nuance to what I'm saying.
Yep.
But just make sure it's not, the
Okay.
focus isn't the
Thank you,
boat.
guys.
The focus is the captain.
Okay. Thanks. Other questions?
I'll let Dee take the, what point would the shark be taken off the board?
I guess I can answer that. So the shark would be taken off the board by the judge if the robot is interrupted while the shark is not completely, or anything that the robot's in contact with is not completely within sight of a home area. Or if the shark lands straddling the home field line and the students touch it, it would be removed.
Dee, if I interrupt, if I'm carrying it while I leave, it's not interrupted. It's only when if it's interrupted while it's taking back, right?
Correct. So what Joe's referring to is if the shark is on the robot when the robot launches, or in contact with the robot when the robot launches, and the robot is interrupted, the shark would be returned with the robot. And
Yeah,
all
I'm
of
just
this
fair. I'm
section
fearful
match
because I, good.
Nope. So I was going to say all of this is defined in the section during the match outside of home.
Okay. All right. Well, we've hit the 8 o'clock hour. I appreciate everyone coming, and thank you very much for your time. Hopefully we've given you some direction, and please go ahead and drop an email either to any of us or to First Illinois and let them know if you have any questions. So thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Hey, Dave, one last thing. Just look at YouTube for sample design presentations. Just really look at all the YouTube videos. If you haven't done it yet, make sure your team sees the sample YouTube design presentations. There's good ones out there. Just look for them on YouTube.
All right, Joe.
Cool.